Today, we're going to talk about how Trump's $83 million verdict changes everything for him moving forward, and I interview longtime Republican advisor and host of the Hacks on Tap podcast, Mike Murphy, about Trump's effort to end Nikki Haley's campaign backfiring on him, whether her supporters may defect to Joe Biden in November, and his thoughts on the U.S. Senate race in California. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're watching No Lie. You likely know by now that Donald Trump was just hit with an astronomical judgment of $83 million in the second defamation case brought by E. Jean Carroll. Here's why this verdict changes everything for him moving forward. Prior to his first ruling, in the first iteration of this case, Trump was hit with a $5 million judgment. I don't know how rich Donald Trump is, but we have a sense, right? And that sense is that a $5 million judgment doesn't have much of an impact on someone who's not only already wealthy, but has an email list of millions of people at his disposal ready to empty their wallets for the guy. But when Trump was hit with an $83 million judgment, that's different for two reasons. The first, it may be easy to bilk your marks for $5 million, a lot less easy to bilk them for $83 million. This is a big number and it hurts. And it remains to be seen what Judge Kaplan does in terms of requiring some bond pending Trump's appeal, but he's not going to be able to wiggle his way out of this. And if you need proof that this hurts him financially, notice that the punitive damages are actually having their intended effect of deterring him from defaming E. Jean Carroll again. Like, after that $5 million judgment, it took all of 24 hours before Trump defamed her on national television. This time, it's already been a few days, and the guy is tiptoeing around her like a teenager trying to sneak out of the house. For Donald Trump, of all people, this human grenade with no pin, to not lash out like a raving lunatic and actually respect a court's ruling is all the proof you need that this number actually hurts him, and it hurts him badly. So, I don't want to be all Susan Collins here, but holy shit, maybe we actually found the number it takes to make Trump stop breaking the law. And look, Trump's finances are, of course, one thing. Yes, it'll hurt him in the wallet, and for good reason. But here's the most important effect of this ruling. It shatters his air of invincibility. This idea that nothing can happen to him, that he's Teflon Don, that he can commit crimes with impunity. And by the way, Donald Trump relies on that cynicism. He wants us to be so disgusted with the dysfunction of the justice system and the political system that we lose faith in it, that we abandon it. That's not some convenient little added benefit for him. That is a hallmark, a focal point of his strategy. But that illusion of his invincibility is now shattered. Trump was just held accountable by a judge and a jury who didn't care about his ranting and his raving and his temper tantrums and his threats to the tune of $83 million. They weren't scared into submission. And so now, Trump moves forward into his subsequent prosecutions, not enjoying the high of having gotten away with it, but seriously damaged from the last trial where he was held to account. And in the same way that the first indictment against him was the hardest, but then the next three fell like dominoes, this takedown of Trump may have been the first time that the guy was really, truly hit hard in court, but it paves the way for the next jury. That no, the sky will not fall, and it's not some impossibility to hold this run-of-the-mill con man to account for his own actions. And I want to be clear, this isn't the only blow that Donald Trump was dealt this week. He was hoping to end the Republican primary. Instead, he managed to lose 45% of the vote in New Hampshire and ensure that Nikki Haley would spend the next month campaigning against him before her home state of South Carolina. That means more money spent fighting against another Republican. That means more of a wedge driven between Haley voters and Trump voters. More Republican-sponsored attacks against Donald Trump. More hard truths that Republican voters are going to hear from one of Donald Trump's own cabinet members. And, of course, less time that Trump can attack Joe Biden. And that's to say nothing of the fact that in two races in a row now, at least a third of the Republican primary electorate has said in polling that a conviction would mean Donald Trump is unfit for office. And as always, I can't predict what the future is going to be, but I would bet my last dollar that Trump will be convicted on at least one of the 91 criminal charges against him. Hell, it's likely that he'll be convicted on all 91. So if you think things seem tenuous for Trump now, where he's barely been able to manage more than half of his own party's base voters in the first two contests, just wait until we get to the general, and all of a sudden tens of millions of Americans who hadn't been paying attention are going to find out that Trump is a convicted felon. Probably not great for the same party that walks around beating its chest as the defenders of law and order. But as always, I do have to say this. No one brought this on Trump other than himself. No one forced Donald Trump to defame E. Jean Carroll. No one forced him to interfere in the electoral certification. No one forced him to steal documents from the White House. No one forced him to direct his henchmen to undermine the election results in Georgia. No one forced him to commit campaign finance violations. He might claim that all of these prosecutions are the result of some coordinated witch hunt against him by the Democrats, but remember, it was the Democrats who pleaded with him not to do all of this. Had he bothered listening to that one group of people who he's now blaming, he wouldn't have to step a single foot in a courtroom. So the next time he tries to blame the left, just remember that it was the left who were the only ones giving him the right advice to actually stay out of court. Here's a preview of my interview with Mike Murphy. Donald Trump issued a threat against Nikki Haley's donors that they would be blacklisted if they do end up donating to her. And in the first 48 hours after he issued that threat, she raised, I think it was over $2.5 million. Would you say that this backfired on Trump a little bit?
Oh, totally. On so many levels. In fact, I talked to an old buddy of mine from Texas who's a Haley donor, somebody who served with distinction in Republican politics. And he said, yeah, I saw that and I sent her more money. I want to get a little pin that says, come try me.
Well,
yeah,
truly, what is the rationale here? And we're going to talk about this. This is one of my upcoming questions. But what is the rationale here? Because there isn't. I mean, do they really believe that Nikki Haley is going to be the next president? Is going to win this primary?
Well, no, they just want to put up the noble fight. Let me back up a minute. Okay. So that was the craziest election night in American history, and I have a theory about what really happened. During the day, the networks were doing exit polls, which are tricky because you take them during the day as waves of voters. They call in the results. A computer makes a model. And within the networks, they keep updating, but you get a number. So the midday number based on the morning exits was pretty tight. It was like 3 or 4 points. And that started leaking out. And I think somebody told Trump and he went batshit crazy and they had to Falcon hood him, get a straitjacket out. And he was pissed off all day. Later waves showed it widening to reality, with more like 11 points. But Trump was so wound up, he went out there and did crazy grievance night. And it was just Trump unhinged, which is the Trump we have. With his mental decay, he makes Biden look like Einstein. So that was the Trump psychosis that led to I'm going to come get you, all the crazy fascist crap. He's just more revealing. Whenever he's under pressure, Trump is so revealing to all his problems and, why he can never be in the Oval. Now, as far as why donors are giving to Haley is that they hate Trump. There's a wing of the Republican Party. I'm one of them, the never Trumpers who don't like him. And in the actual elections, she's pulling a lot of independent, or in California, we call them DTS, decline to state votes, that don't want Trump. The question is, can she get the nomination? So I went to New Hampshire, I went to Iowa, and in addition to hacks and my NBC TV stuff, I wrote some Substack columns about it, which I encourage people to check out. And I wrote one flying back on election day to LA from New Hampshire of the fork in Nikki Haley's road. Does she go down to South Carolina, fight the good fight, which will be emotionally satisfying to many people, including me, and get killed in the primary, which sadly I think is the most likely outcome? Or should she fold her tent, step back, let Trump advance into winner of all the political disasters he's going to have, either losing to Biden again or winning and being a disaster, midterm 2026 disaster, and reappear as the one major person left in the Republican Party? You can say, I told you so. I predicted this, and I think she could have a hell of a run. She's young. So if I were advising her for her interest, I would say that. Don't go lose in South Carolina. Pull back, be the fresh face in 4 years that were in the party. From Mike Murphy, I want her to go, as I wrote, throw a heel, hit him in the head, do everything she can to scrape and fight because I'm enjoying it. But I can't tell you, I think she's going to win the South Carolina primary.
To watch the full interview with Mike, click the thumbnail right here on the screen or check out the interviews playlist on my YouTube channel. You can also listen to the audio version of this episode by clicking that link on the screen. And as always, to see more of my content, the subscribe button is on the screen as well.